Okay, here we go. Welcome. Another Wednesday for Technology PD. This week, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different questions that people have been asking me this week. They've been sending me emails, and so I want to cover those. We're also going to be talking about Gmail, the dreaded Gmail. We all use it every day, all day, probably too much. So we've done Gmail before, but we're going to revisit it to do some kind of tips and tricks to see kind of hopefully to make your life easier, to do some things that will save you time and then ultimately, make your life a little bit easier than it might have been before. We also have a guest today. Today is Nick Pease for our student showcase. He'll be joining us in a couple minutes. So I see people are joining right now. We'll get started here very shortly. We're up to 2,100 people or so. So welcome everybody to another Wednesday Tech PD. Today is January 13th. We are starting the new year off with a bang, it seems like. I do want to remind everyone, if you are interested, the basketball games are going to be streamed, live streamed, just like the field hockey games were and so forth. So if you want to watch from the comfort of your home, obviously we're not able to go in person, but all of our high school basketball games will be streamed as well as the middle school games. We are been working on the new equipment we received this year to put on the channel, the Spectrum local access channel, but also on the web. So if you go to rsu19.org and you'll click on the media link right up at the top, you'll be able to watch those games live with announcers and so forth. So, all right, let's get started. So a couple of questions that came this week. The first one that's come up a lot, and hopefully it's been addressed, this is more for the middle school teachers, but some issues with sound. And so last couple of weeks, they've updated, gone through, you might have seen Josh and Daniel run around the school up on ladders, kind of figuring out something with your projector. If you're having trouble with sound, with your sound bar, the first thing to know is if you click through the input on your remote, find AUX or auxiliary. If that doesn't work, it may be something else, and certainly let us know. We can fix that. But that should get us the ability to have it go through. I know that was an update since earlier in the year. Try that first. So what you're doing is you're clicking the input button on your remote, going to auxiliary, and hopefully that's it. If it's not, if that doesn't work, then let us know, and there may be something else. And so I just want to getting that question quite a bit. Another question that's come up, you can do a quick screen share here. You guys can see my screen. There we go. Again, as usual, if you notice me looking over here, I am checking the chat and checking the screen to make sure everything's working okay. So two questions that come up here. One is about extensions, Chrome extensions. So typically for the Chromebooks that your students have and for the teachers' machines as well, we allow Chromebook extensions to be added, but we don't necessarily push them. That means we don't force them generally. What is an extension? So if I go to the Chrome Web Store, and there's many ways you can get there. I just find just actually Googling Chrome Web Store is just as quick as anywhere. These are all little programs that add functionality to the Chrome browser. Okay, so the Chrome browser itself is extended. Now you'll also notice here right underneath that it says themes. So there are different color schemes and so forth they can apply as well. But extension is going to add little things. Now we've talked about some of these like Screencastify, and I know one right now we're talking to 6th grade here, Tab Cloud. We just wanted to see, excuse me, not Tab Cloud, Duelist is wanting to see different screen sizes and so forth to adjust how your screen's laid out. If you add an extension and you don't see it, or if you have your students add one, they don't see it. One thing that happens is up in the upper right up here, you'll see a little, it looks like a puzzle piece. You may have the extension in here, but it may not be tagged or pinned to the top. So these little pins, it looks like a little thumbtack, we'll add it up to the top here, and I can unpin it and it'll go away again. That's what that's for. So if you're like, I don't know where they are, I don't see them, click on that. You might see it up here. You can kind of tab that, the little pin, there it is. You can also move these around if you want to, if I'm just dragging them around, if you want to reorganize them for whatever reason. You can also right click on them, and that may give you, if you want to remove it totally, if you want to unpin it so it's not up in the toolbar anymore, or if there are options, it will give you whatever those options are. Now this one doesn't have, this is Screencastify. There's a couple options here. But again, I just right clicked. If you're on a Chromebook, you're going to alt click on that. The other thing, if you want to see all your extensions, I would, again, click on the little puzzle piece. And down here at the bottom, it says Manage Extensions. So there's a bunch of them on here. Now, it looks like I have a ton on here, which I have quite a few, but I don't know if you look closely, you'll see a lot of mine are disabled. So I make it a point I will add an extension, use it for a little while. If I don't use it, I will disable it. And then, because it's not taking resources, if it's been a long while when I haven't used it for a long time, I will remove it. Every once in a while, I'll take the time to go through and remove all my old extensions I don't want anymore. I'll just come right in here and click remove. The reason why is extensions can take a lot of resources. They don't always, and I don't want to stop anybody from adding them. Don't get scared from them. But they can take a lot of resources if, whatever they're doing, who knows. So play with them, absolutely. We don't want to lock them down so you can't try things out, because we know that sometimes you'll find an extension that's really cool, that's really useful to you or your students. Please let us know so we can share it here, because the more people that have that, the better, right? To be able to share what's a good extension, worthwhile and so forth. Cool. Another thing that came up recently, another kind of question, was the waffle. And what am I talking about? Well, if I go to google.com in the upper right-hand corner, and this kind of follows us everywhere, it's the little gray 9 dots that are the menu that have all the kind of the Google tools, the G Suite tools. I refer to it as the waffle. It's just a reason why, for the kids love it, of course, they laugh when they're, elementary grades, but it's a way for them to, to remember, oh, waffle sounds funny, and they'll remember what I'm talking about. So there's other names for it, the menu system or the dots or whatever. But if I click on that little waffle up there, so these are things we're used to. There's Google Search, Gmail, Calendar, and so forth. You can scroll down, and there's some other things you might not, be used to. Some of these we don't have enabled for different purposes. For example, cloud search. That's not something that's going to be appropriate for school. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's not going to be useful to you, basically. You're not going to need it for any reason. You can rearrange these. If I click and hold down, if I say, I don't really want this one even up there, I can drag it down here and move them around. So if you wanted to make your most common items that are at the top, you can kind of scroll them around and move it that way. You can also, if I keep scrolling down here, you'll see some other apps down at the bottom. Well, what are these? These are apps that are running as an administration, as a district level thing that we use for different purposes. For example, Cloud Print, we were using that to print. There you see Pear Deck there. Bark is one we use for objectable material to kind of thwart that. So if students are, hopefully to kind of help mediate them going to places they shouldn't be. So some of these things kind of run in the background. Again, don't worry about them. Don't worry about if they're there. You can just kind of ignore them or move them around if you want to. But those are kind of district level types of apps that go to the entire domain, the entire G Suite. So that's it. That's what this does. Again, you can move them around if you find it convenient. I mean, we use Classroom all the time, so maybe put that right up the top or whatever. If you want any specific ones in here, if you're wondering, well, what is this one? Let me know in the chat. I'll be happy to answer that if I know what it is, if you find one that I didn't cover. All right. So with that, I think I'd like to introduce our guest today. Whoops, sorry about that. Too fast. Let me turn off presenting. And let's pull up Nick, if you would turn your camera on for me.
It's okay. It's there. All right.
There you are. So here's Nick Pease, a senior here at Nokomis Regional High. Nick is awesome, if you didn't already know that. But he is going to talk about his senior project. I just thought it'd be fun for him to share, and I get some feedback from you guys. So go ahead, take it away, Nick.
Sure. So as Mr. Kelly said, I'm a senior. I recognize a couple old teachers as you guys came in. But basically, if you're not familiar, a senior project, something every senior has to do. You can either do a few job shadows, or you can design and build something. I chose the latter option because that appeals more to me personally. So let me present. I took a few slides out of my presentation that I have to give at the end of the year or next week, just pertaining to the project itself that I'd like to share with you guys. So I built a physical, and I got it here. It's hard to see, but I built a physical aircraft tracker using components I found on the internet. I designed all the hardware myself from different sources, and I designed all the software as well.
All right, so I want to pause you right there, Nick. I need you to explain to me and the audience here how to design and create a commercial aircraft radar receiver and decryptor. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, sure. So basically, the whole device runs on this concept called ADS-B, which is in every commercial aircraft there is now. It's actually a federal regulation. It's a system on the aircraft that transmits location to air traffic controllers. And then it gives you updates of speed and heading and changes like that. And my device takes all this information in, puts it on a map, and keeps track of its location over time via an antenna. Works basically anywhere. Like I said, basically ADS-B just works. It's a replacement for conventional radar. It's cheaper, and you can run it more rurally instead of needing $1 million hardware to access information. For like, just increases safety for airports, small airports around the country. A couple features of my device. Here's some screenshots of it working. It takes the output of a program that runs on the device and puts that on a map. As you can see in this top photo here, 4 aircraft flying over the state of Maine. The range is roughly 100 miles, depending on where you are. Obviously, higher elevations have a longer range, but it's generally around 100 miles, so long as you aren't sitting inside anywhere. It also lets you pull in the nearest weather station's weather report, which is very handy for deciphering like air traffic control calls, stuff like that. And that is based on where the center of the map is. So whenever you move the map, it updates wherever it pulls your weather from.
What made you think to do this? Like, what was the impetus to have this be your senior project?
Sure. So I've always had a curiosity for aviation. You know, I've looked up to the sky for a long time. First it was space, and then it kind of settled on airplanes. And from there, I had this project in mind for years, and I never really had a good excuse rather to do it. Obviously I wanted to do it at some point, but nothing really drove me to do it. And then if anything came out of COVID that was positive, it was an insane amount of free time. So I really had a chance to actually sit down and start working on this and doing it. Because I just had more time, and I had more time to plan it and more time to do it. Because I started this back in June roughly, and I only finished it up last month.
Because I remember you emailing me this summer, and it wasn't just the fact of like the website stuff you're talking about here, but also the physical creation, you know, programming a Raspberry Pi computer internally, 3D printing the chassis of the body for it, right? All those components.
Yeah, so I did have to learn quite a few things. Obviously, I didn't know so much about physical computing and programming about that sort. I knew a lot about web development, and that's where really it came in handy, because this whole thing is basically a website that takes data from an application that runs on the device. That's basically how it works. So the whole thing's a website, and I was able to do that, but I had to learn everything else, and that took a while. Like this aircraft audio is pulled from a website that that's what it does. It does aircraft audio, and it just works really nice for that. It might play. I'm gonna try to get it to play.
Denver Tower, RNAV, Berkham, runway 25, clear takeoff, wind 3407.
Berkham 257, takeoff.
So is that live right now?
It's not live. I can play a clip of a live feed in a moment. That was an excerpt I took on the 7th from it, just for demonstration purposes, because channels aren't always active.
Sure.
It also pulls in the nearest departure and arrival charts from whatever airport you choose. Just a nifty little feature I chose for posterity's sake. It's nice to know if you're plane watching, which is something I like to do. I'll get into so here's like a quick chart, you know, of the coding on it. There's roughly 500,000 lines of code between stuff I wrote and stuff that I was given. It's 50-50 basically. The bottom half, like I like to say, makes it work, and the top half makes it look pretty. And the green is like the core makes it pull in the aircraft. So only 2% of it is really actually pulling aircraft in. The other 98% is making it look pretty for the user, which took quite a bit of time.
How much time do you have in this, would you guess?
Back in the summer, I was putting in probably 10 hours a day when I could. Obviously, I had work and I had to work around that. But I'd say roughly a week, probably 30 hours or so for a good couple months, and then working on it on weekends outside of that. You mentioned the 3D modeling. I had to model the whole case from scratch. It took about 3 months because I'm not very good with that sort of thing. I had to learn to make all the components fit, hopefully, and then it spins. So I had to model all the parts and model the case around it, which took some time. I think I printed it 8 times before it printed right. And then I bought a 3D printer to learn how to do that too, because I needed that room for error. And I learned a lot about that as well. I did make a short time lapse of the actual print itself, and how that looks. I'll let that play, hopefully. Let it buffer here for a second.
While that's loading, yeah, so I don't know if you see the chat. So Miss Dutel mentioned how incredible this looks, and I agree. Can you just tell everybody too, so this is your senior project right now, the other project we've been talking about, or I don't know if we really started really, but we offered for the Samsung grant.
Sure. So
the one we, yeah.
Yep. So in broadcasting, we take projects on as well. So the project that I was both tasked and given was applying for a Samsung grant, which is a program they offer for students and educators. And basically, they let you identify a problem in your community, and they'll give you money as long as you have an idea of how to solve it. So the problem that Mr. Kelly and I really worked for and saw was, with the coronavirus and everything, disinfecting and cleaning in schools isn't what it used to be. Teachers have to wipe down after every class. So we sought out to make a robot that does it for you. The idea now is to take a disinfectant wipe, clamp it in there, and it will clean the table off automatically. So, twice as much space in the same time. It's just going to reduce the workload. Reduce the workload on already busy teachers. So win-win there. And I'm working with the team on that.
So, yeah, so I just wanted to announce now, just so everybody knows, Nick doesn't even realize this yet. We just received the update this morning that our team, which is Nick Pease, Bree Townsend, Cheyenne Martin, and some other students, has been selected as a semifinalist across the country. So that means the school will receive a prize of $15,000, and we'll be able to use that towards this project and be applied towards the national competition. So there are 5 schools per state that get selected, and we were one of them.
Oh yeah, that's news to me. Sweet.
I thought it'd be fun to announce it in an audience rather than just tell you, on one. So yeah.
Yeah, impeccable timing as well this morning. I couldn't have planned that better. But yeah, no, that's excellent. I think it finally loaded, so I can play. Play this finally. I'm not sure how well it's going to load, but yeah, that went about as well as I thought it would, but that's okay. Moving onward. Still pictures still work. So here's some pictures of the actual internals of the case, because I have it all closed up now. The sheer amount of wires that I need to cram in there. There are buttons and stuff on the outside. There's a power button. There's a port to plug in. I included a fan to keep it nice and cool in there. And I also included a speaker so you can actually hear air traffic controllers as they're directing planes. That's what it looks like now in better lighting. I did include a mount to magnetically attach the antenna to the device itself. So that's not pictured, but it's on there. I do also have this. So it's set up to be remotely reviewed. Like I can remotely connect to it from wherever I am, so long as it's on. So this is a more clean version of the image. I can see my presentation and it has it loaded in for you, Mr. Kelly?
I can see the final result pictures right now still.
Okay, so I guess it's still loading in then.
That's okay. You can hold up the box, they can just see it, just show it the video.
Yes. Yep. All right. So this is that. Okay, this is why. Entire screen. So then this is the device itself. It is a touch screen. I can't see where I'm touching here.
Here we go. We can see it now.
Perfect. All right. So the other thing about it, like I said, I can remotely connect to it to run it however I want. So that's how the software interface looks itself. You have a map of Maine. It'll tell you, if there's any aircraft flying by. Maine's not the busiest state, and I'm not in the best location to receive signals, so there's nothing on there right now. But normally you'd see a list of all the planes nearby. You can select them, get more information. Here's
one question from the chat. Is this something you're interested in doing after graduation?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I'm looking to go to college for computer science or electrical engineering because this kind of fits both. Beyond that, the University of Maine, I'm submitting this in the science fair, and part of the science fair scholarship process is applying for research money and a research grant. So if I got a research grant for that, for winning the science fair, I'd take 4 years, work on refining this, because in the end, these systems can be mounted in aircraft themselves and improve flight safety, which, even though there's not a lot of reportable airline accidents, I'm not sure if everyone heard, but last week a plane went down in Malaysia. And just improving safety for that aspect of pilots' lives would be incredibly helpful, as someday I want to be a pilot too.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Nick. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing all your work. And as everybody can see, I was just blown away as the mentor. Now, I just kind of watched him tell me all the cool stuff he's working on, so I didn't really take any credit by any stretch. But I'm excited too. Now we got a new task, a new project to work on, and some funds to do it. So that'll be our next job.
Yeah, moving onward.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'm gonna just switch gears a little bit. We're just gonna talk a little bit about, I did promise to do a little bit of Gmail stuff. We got about 5 more minutes. We're obviously not gonna do a ton, but I do want to cover 2 things specifically that I was asked this week to kind of make people's lives easier. And so what that has to do with is filters and inbox. So in your regular Gmail here, switching gears, let's pull up my Gmail here. I'm just going to click up in the upper right here on this little gear. Whoops, sorry, I'm not doing the screen share. Let me try that again. All right, let's try that again. So back in our email here in the upper right, if you click that little gear, up beside little question mark, and you have different settings here, I'm going to click See All Settings, just to kind of go through a couple things that may hopefully make your life easier. The first one, I'm in the General tab right at the beginning as I scroll down. This is kind of a somewhat beneficial, but depending on what your needs are. Send cancellation period to 30 seconds. So what that means is if you send an email and you want to undo that, you want to take it back, you really technically can't once it's been sent. What this does is it gives you so many seconds, up to 30 seconds, so that in that 30 seconds, it actually technically hasn't sent it yet, but you can undo in that time. Again, maybe that's useful, maybe not, but I usually switch that up to 30 seconds because that's as high as it will go. Also in here, if I scroll down, we talked about a signature. This is where I'd add that right in that General tab right here. One thing that's a little bit unique to Gmail is if I do make a change like this, I have to save it. If I scroll all the way down, I do have to save the changes. It doesn't just do it automatically. This is where, let's keep going over here in the tabs here, go to labels. So this is where if you want to organize, so the question came down to receiving emails specifically around certain classrooms, Google Classrooms, right? You want to kind of organize them by that. So if I create a label, and let's say I said this is for my Tech PD classroom. Okay, so I'm going to create a label for that. Now, a label is different than a folder. A folder is where you take a bunch of documents or things, maybe emails, and you put them into it. A label just means it will be tagged with that. So I can choose which emails I want to be tagged with this name, this label here. So I'm going to call it Tech PD Classroom. We'll create that. It will be there. This appears over here on the left. All these different things under your mail. It says inbox and start and all this stuff. There's all kinds of labels. You can show or hide any of those. If you don't want to, show the snoozed ones, I can hide that, and then it'll just go away. And I can show it again if I want to later on. So you can choose which ones will appear over here on the left. If I keep going, we'll come back to labels in a second, but I just created one right here in this little create new label button. If I go to inbox here, this is where I recommend. Now, some people love it, some people hate it, and you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can undo it. But I recommend turning all of these on right here. And what they do, let me just show you back in my regular inbox here, is they create these tabs for primary, social, promotions, updates, and forums, and so forth. And the reason why I think it's worthwhile, if nothing else, is it will take all your emails that come from Google Classroom. Every time a student says, yes, I completed an assignment, or it's assignments late, or whatever it is, that interaction back and forth through email will all get organized into this tab. So that keeps your primary tab, your regular inbox, a little bit more free, a little bit more clear. If you have something that comes in here, let's say this email right here, I don't even know what it is. Let's say this one right here, like, oh no, that really shouldn't be in updates. I really want that to be my primary because I always want to see that in my regular inbox. You can drag these into any of these you want. I'll drag it into primary, and it will say, do you always want to do messages from this person or this address into your primary, yes or no? And so I could choose that if I always want to. Again, if you don't like it, if you click on that little gear up the upper right, go to see all settings, and if you go back to inbox and you say, I didn't like it, it wasn't for me, it's too confusing, you can just uncheck these and it'll all go back together again. So it's not a one-time deal. Also in here, I think it's really worthwhile are filters. So that's the filter, we're gonna come back to the idea of labels. So let's say, for example, go back to inbox, any email from Sue Page. Now I'm just gonna pick on Sue for a second. I can check this box right here. I can go up to the little 3 dots pull downs, and I can filter messages like these. Think of this like, this is how I think of it is. I don't know if this is 100% accurate or not. Let me go back to filter. Oops, try that again. How I think of this, how I think the filter is like the mail sorter. So you see like the old-fashioned, postal office, whatever, and have a million different letters are coming in, and you see those, the videos of like all the letters are going to different places automatically. They're getting sorted and organized and put in different slots. This is kind of doing that for you. So you're creating the filter initially as an email comes in, and you're saying, okay, anytime I get an email, maybe it's from this person, maybe it's with these certain words, maybe it's with an attachment, whatever it is, I want it to automatically go somewhere. So I can say, anytime I get an email from Sue Page, I want it automatically to go to, I'm going to create a filter right here. Let's get rid of this passwords. Create a filter. I want to automatically mark it as star it. Very important. And mark it as important. So I can check these. I could skip the inbox. I could say it's already read. I could delete it. I could keep it. Whatever I want to do with it. Anytime I get an email from that address, it's going to do these things. I could apply the label called Tech PD. So I can find the one I just created, Tech PD. So anytime an email comes from that address, it's going to be labeled over here automatically. So maybe I have one called parents for all my parent emails coming in. Maybe I have one called a certain class. Again, you can do any variation of that, how you want to do it. I just did it for one email address, but you could do it for like from a single Google Classroom email address if I wanted to. And then once you've done, when I've created that filter here, I would just click create filter, and I've got it. It's done. That means if I want to go to them now, I go back to my settings up here. And if I go to filters right here in one of these tabs in the middle, it will be in here as one of the filters. I can choose it, and I can say do whatever. The last thing I'm going to share in here for Gmail today, because we're running up against the clock here, is under the advanced. And I do recommend this. This is a huge time saver. If you have to send any emails and you almost want like a form letter where you're sending a lot of the same kind of thing, you can come into advanced right here under settings and go to templates. So if I enable templates, What that means now is if I can compose a letter, so I can say this is for two parents. I could say thank you for your wonderful student. Whatever it is, whatever your email that you're going to do for multiple people, you can create it first. So type out like your form letter almost. And then down here in the lower right, this little 3 dots, you're going to go to templates and you're going to save that as a template. So for example, I'll just show you what I have. I have a template for those emails that I send out on Tuesdays to remind people about what the topics are for today. I've created a blank email. I saved it as a template. Now I can click on this, go to my templates, go to Tech PD on Wednesdays, and that information will automatically pop up because I've saved it. And now I can come in here and change the things that I want to change to update it for today. And so just hopefully another time saver for people and to make their life easier. And with that, we did a pretty good job. 1:30 by my clock. 1:31. So thank you all, everybody, for coming. As always, have a great week. We will see you next Wednesday, and we'll give you updates on the Samsung award. So we'll let you guys know how that goes. Thanks, everybody.